Alright, the Eagles are doing something that legitimately should have the rest of the league concerned, especially after that 27-13 beatdown against one of the best defenses in the NFL. However, it's how the Philly offense got going that's the most impressive part, with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown shutting up the haters for good. Plus, we got a couple injury updates, as well as takeaways for just how good the defense has been playing, since it looks like Quinyon Mitchell is the favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, although Nolan Smith has completely changed the complexion of Fangio's unit. So let's talk about that and everything else from Week 15. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? I mean, there's just no other way to say it. That was a huge statement win. Whether it was passing the football, running it, or relying on the #1 defense in the league, the Eagles did it all. In fact, the Birds have now won 10 games in a row, which is a franchise record. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers still haven't won in Philly since 1965. And thanks to the Detroit Lions giving up nearly 600 yards of total offense in a losing effort to the Buffalo Bills, the Eagles are now just one game away from taking the #1 seed in the NFC.
Feel that, Allen? Huh? That tingling in your balls, big metal butterflies fluttering around your stomach?
I'm going to pick them to win the Super Bowl. I don't even know what to make of them. They have the deepest roster in the league. They have young stars, stars in their prime, old stars. Only team in the league that has like 3 levels of greatness.
He's not wrong, although it wouldn't surprise me to see him switching up his prediction right before the playoffs. Although there's no denying the severity of the Lions' injuries, as Detroit added insult to injury following Sunday's loss, losing cornerback Carlton Davis due to a broken jaw, defensive tackle Ali McNeil to a torn ACL, and running back David Montgomery to an MCL injury. And while Davis might be able to get back sometime in the playoffs, Montgomery is officially out for the year. Look, I don't know what's in the water in Detroit or how they've gotten so unlucky with the injuries, but those losses, combined with the remaining schedule, has put the Eagles as co-favorites to win the Super Bowl now.
This team is ridiculous how good they are. By the way, the best part of their team is on the other side of the ball.
Is their defense. Are the Eagles the best team in the NFL, D. Wood?
Yes.
That right there might be the scariest part about this team. Seriously, the Birds just won by a landslide thanks to all 3 phases, but the defense was masterful. Yes, technically the Steelers were missing George Pickens, and he's without a doubt a big loss. But to hand Russell Wilson his first Philly L while holding Pittsburgh to 163 total yards, 10 first downs, and a 3.3 yards per rush was crazy impressive. By the way, holding Mike Tomlin's side to 163 total yards was the lowest offensive output from the Steelers since 2010, which for those curious was whenever Charlie Batch and Dennis Dickerson combined to play quarterback and shockingly get the win over Tennessee, despite just 127 yards of total offense. Yet that was a game that featured the Titans turning the ball over 7 times. Now, not that it was ever going to get that ugly in this one, but if we're being honest, I mean, it was a pretty one-sided game, as Vic Fangio attacked the line of scrimmage and overwhelmed Pittsburgh, translating in negative 19 total yards on the Steelers' first 5 possessions. And then thanks to the offense's dominance, that total yards discrepancy ended up being 401 yards to 163. In particular, credit to the passing game.
The reality is just because we don't mean we can't.
You want us to run it? We can run it. Yeah. You want us to pass it? How about that pass? Yeah.
Let's remember, that was the 5th-ranked defense in the NFL. Yet Jalen Hurts just completed 25 of 32 passes for 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 125.3 passer rating. And give the dude some credit, because whether it's been a turnover criticism or extending plays too long or just not being aggressive enough in the passing game, Jalen's never shied away from proving people wrong. Like, come on, QB1 was just about as good as you can get Sunday throwing the football, constantly driving the ball down the field, making quick decisions, and ultimately making the defense pay. Remember, coming into the game, Jalen had been one of the worst in terms of throwing the ball or pushing the ball down the field. However, in Week 15, Hurts completed 6 passes of at least 20 yards. And maybe most importantly, Jalen was 12 for 13 for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half with an average time to throw of 2.6 seconds. For the record, that is his fastest time to throw of any half this entire season, and actually by a decent margin. So between that, the offensive line blocking well, and A.J. Brown getting on the board, I think it's safe to say passing got better.
It's all about finding the rhythm, and for all 11 to be on the same page when we go out there and execute. And I think we're able to find a good rhythm this year, a rhythm that we hadn't found for a long time this year, but that's what great teams are able to do, win in multiple ways.
That was our moment to tell everybody to shut up, honestly.
Starting to get to Hurts, able to get away initially.
Jalen Hurts is not the answer.
Is that who we're putting on right now?
We have a #1 defense, running back. Jalen Hurts is not the answer.
Big time win. Hurts balling out. Psych, he didn't do anything.
I think we should get a new quarterback. Maybe draft like Jackson Dart or like Jalen Miller.
That was an overreaction.
Hurts firing long. Caught! Who else? A.J. Brown. Hurts. Pressure. Slings it. It is caught for the touchdown.
So that's what y'all want to see, huh?
Jalen, you said you'll figure this out. Is that what we saw tonight?
We found a way to win the game.
I don't mind the fighting as long as like that. It's and that's them. They're doing. This is what they are. They're the makeup sex team. I'm just gonna say it.
I'm sorry, babe. I didn't mean that either. I just yell sometimes because I get so scared.
The good news is that I'm sure that this has finally put to rest all the criticism and the haters and everything else about Jalen. You know, since Kellen Moore opened up the playbook and got the pass game rhythm going early, while using empty formations on Sunday 9 times for a grand total of 116 yards, which was more than the last 7 weeks combined. And heck, look at the route trees for DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown. Like sometimes it just feels like the coaching staff gets in their own way and overthinks things. But when you've got guys like Swole Batman and the Slim Reaper, it's nice to see routes being used to maximize those guys in this offense. Although yes, it probably came down to execution more than anything in this game. And here's the thing, the fact that the Eagles did a lot of this without Saquon due to the injury, or just because Pittsburgh basically said we're not going to let Saquon beat us, is huge. I mean, you know it and I know it, that a lot of people put a ton of red flags saying that Jalen Hurts is going to be the reason to keep this team down. And look, Saquon is no doubt MVP worthy, so I'm not going to try to take anything away from him, but Kenny Gainwell deserves a big time shout out, as Kenny G went all Kenny Spinwell while converting really crucial first downs all game long. But honestly, that was a lot of guys, with the O-line resorting to 2 backup guards for a good portion of the game and even being without Lane Johnson for a brief spell. Yet as big as that was, there's something about beating Pittsburgh that puts the whole thing into perspective for the squad. With Lane Johnson admitting that this win felt like a measuring stick, and there's a different feel with this group, which goes right in line with what Diana Rossini tweeted after leaving the locker room, saying this group has that 2017 vibe mixed with 2022. And it might be better, especially when you look at the fact that the Eagles have played 6 teams with winning records this season, and they're 5-1 in those games with a scoring differential of plus 32. However, in 2017, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they were 4-3 against opponents with a winning record and had a point differential of just plus 16.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
The coaches deserve a ton of credit for making the adjustments and listening to this team, because you can tell the players feel heard but are also fully bought into the coordinator's game plan.
We always knew that it was going to come a time where we need to rely on throwing the ball, and it happened, and we were there to answer.
What did you think of the way Jalen stepped up today?
I mean, have all the confidence in him. We know that can happen. It was just a matter of getting that one team that just wanted to stop the run and wanted us to win the game through the air.
The crazy part is that Jalen did all of that with a broken finger. In case you're not entirely sure what I'm talking about, QB1 showed up to the game with his finger wrapped after suffering a broken finger during one of the brotherly shove plays against the Panthers. Now, thankfully, the injury was on his non-throwing hand, but you knew when he showed up with 2 different shoes, the Steelers were in for a beatdown.
I don't care how it looks. It's kind of my game, and I think that's something that people have to accept, that it's going to look how Jalen Hurts wants it to look, but he's going to win.
Not gonna lie, but I love how Mr. Breed of One has totally embraced wearing 2 different shoes in the game, almost as if to troll the haters who don't think he plays the ineffective style of quarterbacking. But sorry, he's a winner. And you already know I'm going to back Jalen 10 times out of 10, but just as a reminder, I'm going to be giving away this signed Jalen Hurts helmet as soon as the channel hits 90,000 subscribers, or as I've said before, as soon as it hits 90,000 subscribers, if you want it to be a signed Saquon Barkley helmet, then I'll make that one as well. So just do me a favor, make sure to hit the sub button, and I'll give it away once we get to 90. Anyway, like I mentioned, Jalen and the offense started out hot, as they marched their way down into field goal range pretty easily, thanks to quick throws and catching the defense off guard, before having to settle for a 34-yard attempt from Jake Elliott, which he made. And then after the defense got their second stop, thanks to some hyperactive batted balls at the line of scrimmage, it looked like Philly was going to keep rolling. Because as I shared, QB1 appeared to be seeing the field much better and getting to his check down quicker. Like this example, when he dumped it off to Gainwell and let him do the rest. However, after picking up a first down, Hurts tried to do a little too much and fumbled the football to give the Steelers great field position.
Get the hell out of my life. Who needs you? Beat it. Leave me alone.
I won't lie, but it's amazing how many fans are so ready to just jump on Jalen for one tiny miscue. I get it, a turnover's not good, yet it certainly helps to have the best defense in the NFL behind you, as all they did was force a quick 3-and-out thanks to a Josh Sweat sack on 3rd down.
Like he's going for the cross chop. He doesn't quite get it, but he still gets that leg through right here. So he's coming from one side. Now watch this rush by Nolan Smith from the other side against his former teammate here, Broderick Jones. Like, you watch how low he is and the power that he comes through with. Now, both ends get to Russell Wilson, all right? And down he goes. It's just a four-man rush. Four-man rush on 3rd and 10. Sweat gets the sack. Nolan Smith was a big part of it, and the celebration is on. Like, there's no time to get the ball down the field against those vultures.
You know, the entire D-line has been really good, but Nolan Smith has been phenomenal. I mean, heck, he stayed on the game for every play except for 2 snaps. The unfortunate part, though, is that even with the defense standing tall for Hurts' turnover, then Cooper DeJean fumbled the ball in the next punt return. Yet a little adversity doesn't faze this squad because they got some dog in them, with Darnell Washington blocking Slay all the way to the stands, which eventually resulted in unnecessary roughness. But the best part was seeing Quinyon Mitchell come over to get Slay's back.
It's not who the toughest, it's who the toughest the longest.
And is that the team motto at this point?
Definitely.
Remember how last season we just never saw that physicality and swag? I mean, at least especially on the defensive side of the ball? Well, yeah, that's completely done a 180. Of course, there's a time and place for it, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Because that stop forced a Pittsburgh field goal to make the game tied up at 3, before the Eagles went 70 yards in 6 plays, taking 2:29 off the clock to find A.J. Brown for the first touchdown of the game. Meaning congrats to Noah Hamad for being the person randomly selected to win the A.J. Brown signed jersey since A.J. scored and the Eagles won the game. And trust me, the giveaways are only going to get crazier the closer that we get to the playoffs, so do me a favor, if you've not already, hit the like button in this video. I mean, that was a ridiculous route by A.J. First off, he sells it by faking like he's just blocking and then cuts in to get to the spot while showing strong hands to make the catch to go up 10-3. Where next Zach Baun and Nakobe Dean continued to live up to the hype and force a punt. I know, I'm like a broken record at this point, but since week 4, the Eagles have had the best 2 linebackers in the NFL. Back to the offense though, because the Steelers continued to stack the box to take away Saquon, but the offense had answers, like running counter RPOs to AJ or just give always open a shot because, well, he's always open. By the way, for those thinking the offense had all of a sudden just forgotten how to beat the blitz against Carolina, they got right back to their blitz-beating ways featuring decisiveness, hot routes, and quick decisions from the offense, where eventually one found 6 for 7. Seriously, we've been talking about it for a long time, but we can finally see how much better this team can be whenever they're clicking on both sides of the ball, the running and the passing. Also, do you notice how many times Jalen went over the middle on Sunday? Just saying, another proof point for how comfortable he looked in seeing him deliver the ball with conviction. So that made it 17-3, and it felt like a blowout was basically already here. However, an unnecessary roughness penalty on Reed Blankenship pushed the ball deep into Philly territory. And look, I'm sorry, but what on earth is Reed supposed to do there? I mean, it's a bang-bang play trying to make a tackle on a QB. Anyway, next, Russell Wilson was running for his life as Nolan Smith hurdled the running back, but unfortunately, Wilson got the first and eventually found Pat Freiermuth for a score to make it 17-10 Birds. And then the next possession was straight up wrecked by TJ Watt, as the Defensive Player of the Year favorite came up with 2 sacks on that series to force a punt. Again, the O-line did a great job nearly the entire game, but Jalen not stepping up into the pocket definitely created the second one. Either way, though, Lane Johnson said afterward that it was a long effing day dealing with TJ Watt. Of course, the shanked punt on the next play gave Russell Wilson great field position, and it looked like they might score another touchdown before the half. That is, until Nolan Smith came up with a sack on 2nd and 10 to ultimately kill the drive and keep the Eagles' lead to 17-13 at half. FYI, Nolan now has 5.5 sacks on the season, and all of those are coming after the bye week. And in addition to that sack, he had 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hurries, a pass breakup, and 4 tackles. Like, the dude is literally all over the field. Now, the part that I love the most is the fact that Howie Roseman had been saying for, since the last playoff game last year that Nolan Smith needed to get more snaps. I've been saying it for an eternity, and you're finally seeing it pay dividends. Heck, like I said, Nolan only came off the field for 2 snaps. Him and Josh Sweat are no doubt your starters. For real, when Bryce Huff comes back, it might be weird to say this, but your $50 million pass rusher is going to be playing backup, because Nolan's too good to leave off the field.
And he's just disruptive. You see here, he's going to work the ghost move, and that raw speed and power lets him disrupt here, helps create a sack for Josh Sweat. Sweat repays the favor for Nolan Smith's sack here, as you're going to see that he's going to go with the bull rush, bounce off the tackle, run the hoop, and get home for a sack of his own later in the game. You get the dice roll celebration, but watch Nolan Smith throughout this football game. Here he's putting his former teammate Darnell Washington in a blender, does a nice job here as a play side run defender, setting up a tackle for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Here on the backside of the run, beating the tight end, stack, shed, violently pursue the football, get home for a violent finish on the running back. Then you see him here as a looper on a stunt where he's going to come inside. This is one of the first 3rd downs of the game, gets his hands on a football, nearly creates a turnover. Look at the juice that Nolan Smith is always playing with. Then you see him here. Watch how fast he's able to close. Russell Wilson doesn't expect Nolan Smith to close as fast as he does. Helps force a throwaway there by Russell Wilson. Watch him run a wheel route here with the tight end, Pat Freiermuth, in the high red zone. You see the athleticism from the edge rusher there. there, taking on a tight end in the open field. Here you see him hurdle a running back in pass pro. Does he lose contain on the scramble? Yeah, probably. You can coach that around with just the athleticism from Nolan Smith, and it shows up chasing plays down to the perimeter as well. He's chasing the screen down out towards the sideline. Nolan Smith, he was a menace on Sunday afternoon.
Also, Nolan had half of the Eagles' pressures against the Steelers, which is even crazier when you realize that Fangio didn't send more than 4 rushers all game against Russell Wilson. FYI, he did send a couple blitzes, but in those instances, he had an edge back off into coverage, so still only 4 pass rushers. Yet the Steelers converted just 3 of 10 third downs, leaving Philly as the second best in terms of third down defense now, as opposed to last season with that unit literally being second to last. Again, I don't know of a better transformation on one side of the ball than what we're seeing this season. Like, once again, the group shut out a team in the second half, and Pittsburgh only ran 11 total plays after halftime. Yes, you heard me right, only 11 plays, as this is where total dominance of complementary football comes in. Because Jalen and the offense went 13 plays in 7 minutes to eventually kick a field goal and take a 7-point lead. Where next, the Steelers were actually driving until Najee Harris fumbled any remaining hopes their offense had at doing something. And then key to point out that Hurts and the Philly offense remained aggressive with some runs and getting Saquon Moore to focus, before an insane effort from Kenny G on 3rd and 9 got the ball to the 1 and Philly eventually scored to go up 14. Okay, this is where things got a little bit interesting because Philly forced a punt with 10:40 to go. And you'd naturally think, okay, 10:40 to go in the fourth quarter, the other team's probably eventually going to get the ball back, but as we saw, that was not the case. Still though, Jalen Carter was flagged for this shot on a Steelers lineman, and quite honestly, JC's lucky that that penalty was ruled to be after the kick. Because looking at the freeze frame, there's certainly a case to be made that that should have been a 15-yard penalty with Pittsburgh to keep the ball. Granted, I'm not upset about it, it just backed up the Eagles' offense instead. But it understandably had Nick Sirianni worked up on the sideline trying to let the bread man know about the mistake. Granted, despite some people trying to blow it out of proportion with Clint Hurt trying to keep Sirianni away from JC, it's his job and emotions run high.
I'll never get into the conversations I have with players, but he made a play that is not part of our standard. And so, my job is to correct that, and regardless of what it is, we're gonna correct the things that we need to do better and praise the things we need to do well. And so, in that moment, that's what that was. I love Jalen Carter. I love what he brings to this football team. Right there, he needs to be smarter in that situation because it could have gave him the ball back. It didn't give him the ball back, but it could have. And so we're going to need to get better from that.
By the way, JC is tied for the league lead in terms of unnecessary roughness penalties with 2. It's not the end of the day. Again, it didn't cost them, but still, I can appreciate Sirianni trying to do his job and, give some corrections in the moment. But for those, again, that may not have seen it, the 2 did end up hugging it out during the game, so all things are good. Not that I'm trying to justify JC's action because he does need to be more careful, but the dude did have a really good day again. I mean, he's without a doubt getting the most focus from opposing offenses every single week, as he proved to be a straight-up game wrecker on more than a couple plays. Although that would be the last time the Steelers saw the breadman because, once again, we had the most ridiculous and most disrespectful ending ever. Seriously, the Birds took over with 10:29 of the clock remaining while going 21 plays and never giving the ball back to Russell Wilson. Thanks to the running game getting going and, like I said earlier, the O-line giving Jalen Hurts plenty of time.
He's got time to go through, Amazon right here. I don't know what website he's on right here. But you know what? A point. I got time. Like, nobody gets this kind of time. And he'll find DeVonta Smith in the middle of the field. Like, the offensive line was outrageously good.
That they were. And honestly, really the only concern coming away from this one, especially when it comes to the O-line, is just the health and injury concerns because a couple guys went down, Landon Dickerson, Mekhi Becton, so we'll keep an eye on how those actually come out. Anyway, the cameras kept showing Russell Wilson warming up on the sidelines, but he never got the opportunity to go in the game. And let me just say this, with the defense as good as it already is, if Jalen Hurts and the offense has actually kind of turned the page or turned a corner in terms of what they can do and close out games this way, then this team is unstoppable. Also, another thing that might be unstoppable is Quinyon Mitchell, as the rookie has overtaken Jared Verse as the favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, which only makes sense considering you're a 12-2 team and have been locked down against just about every receiver you've faced. Now, obviously, it's eyes on the prize, take it one game at a time, and Washington up next in Washington. Yet, come on, you can fill this thing with us being so close to the playoffs. Like everyone wants to jump on board at this point. For example, former Jets GM Joe Douglas was with Howie Roseman pregame. And considering Douglas's connections to Philly previously and his relationship with Roseman, it wouldn't be too surprising if we were to get an announcement that he's back in some capacity. But how are you guys feeling coming away from the 10th straight victory? We are going to get that $100 from Thomas. We're well on our way. Anything that I missed, though, main takeaways, let me hear it. Also, just a heads up, I'm not going to be streaming the Tuesday night hangout. It's mine and my wife's anniversary of 7 years, so we will be celebrating, but I will be back for the Friday night hangout then. So make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, turn the notifications on, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. This has been the Philly Special.